Okay. So we'll.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this webinar. This has been, I think, we've been having these webinars quite often now. This has become the normal routine. So I'm thankful to Roma Executive Management for inviting me to give this welcome address for today's webinar. So my name is Satish Gokhale. I am the Director of Design Directions based in Pune. We are a well-established name and award-winning design and innovation company from India for products, brand strategy, brand and communication, user interface, and packaging design. Our clients actually range from capital equipment design to medical products and diagnostics, a lot of electronic products and consumer product domains. We have been designing products in rotational molding since 2006. That's the first time I actually got my hands onto a rotationally molded product. So till date, we've actually designed over 700 products, out of which about 40 or 50 must been rotational molding. And just recently, we received the Lexus Design Award, which is a very, very prestigious award for one of our rotationally molded product. It's a micro irrigation dam gates, and this was chosen as the jury's choice amongst 1,000+ applications. We basically are into rotational molding because we love the process and the immense design possibilities it can offer. It's my privilege in welcoming all the speakers for today's webinar. The speakers, Martin Coles of Matrix Polymers UK, Gary Latigan of Roto Solutions South Africa, Paul Newcan from Polymer Link Malaysia and India, and our own Dhanubhai Patel and Vikram Baduria. Needless to say that we all know Martin, Gary, and Paul, as they've been associated with us for over several years now. In fact, all these three are as Indians as we are. So thank you very much for joining in, and over to Rajesh Sethi ji. Thank you everyone for joining.
Thank you, Satish ji, for the welcome speech and the inaugural of this webinar. Now, dear Roma members and FGC board members, I, Rajesh Kumar Sethi, Managing Director of Maharashtra Ma Polymers Private Limited and the Honorary General Secretary of Roma. I'm very delighted to welcome you all for today's very interesting webinar. Today we have called what top 5 roto experts for the interaction session. It is going to be a historical event for the Indian roto molding industry. Now I would like to introduce most awaited industry experts. I request Vipul Bhai that only you can on the only 5 speakers and the session chairman photo video on. The rest of the thing you can close it now. So I can introduce all the speakers now. Yeah. So now I would like to introduce our most awaited industry leader. First of all, I would like to welcome Mr. Yeah, Martin Coles is the CEO of Matrix Polymers. After graduating from London University, he started his career in the plastic industry, working for an Italian polyethylene producer called Inichem. And there he became involved in the world of rotomolding materials. He later founded Matrix Polymers with vision to be one of the world's best and largest suppliers of material to the rotomolding industry. The company has evolved over 29 years to become a global supplier and has 5 plants producing rotomolding powders located in the UK, Poland, Australia, New Zealand, and Malaysia. The company supplies more than 120 million of rotomolding materials each year and has more than 230 employees. I welcome Mr. Martin Coles on this today's interview session. Now, I would like to welcome Mr. Paul Nugent from the Polymer Link India Limited. He's a well-known figure in rotomolding industry globally. Paul Nugent is originally from the Belfast, Northern Ireland, when he obtained his doctorate in rotational molding from the Queen's University of Belfast. After his initial research study, he spent 20 years in the US where he managed a mid-sized roto molding company before becoming a global consultant to the industry. He has spent many years in the role of traveling the world studying roto molding and assisting molders, suppliers, and end users alike. Today, he is in a partner in Polymer Link, an international group of companies specialized in roto molding process, which now includes Polymer Link India Private Limited, located in Daman, due to the begin operation during quarter 2021. So they are coming to India in coming quarters. This group is focused on the bringing global technology and high quality approach to provide support on a local basis for a specialist market. I once again welcome Mr. Paul Nugent for this today's introduction session. Now I welcome Mr. Larry Gettigan, Roto Solutions South Africa. Mr. Gary Lettigan is a well-known name in roto molding industry and well-wishers of ROMA from the inception. Mr. Gary Lettigan is a quality parts on the every time and now shares his experience and tools with molders globally to help them attain their full potential. His focus is on to design to produce quality products. Gary is a vast amount of knowledge and a designer of roto parts, molds and machine, and helps clients in all these fields. As a specialist in on-site consultation, he offers 3 levels of on-site consultation, namely roto profit, back to basics, and simple but smart molding. He was the chairman of Arbasa for 8 years and a founding member of ARMO. He has presented a range of papers and workshops across the globe to share his presentation for the industry. An ARM member from 1996, ARM Europe, Barcelona 1989 was his first international meeting. We welcome Mr. Gary Lettigan for this today's show. Now, I welcome Mr. Dhanu Patel from the Reinhardt Technique India Limited. Mr. Dhanu Patel is a well-known name in roto molding industry and globally, and he also associated with the roto molding ROMA from the beginning. Everyone knows that Mr. Dhanu Patel is a well-known best spectrograph of roto molding globally since last 2 decades. Reinhardt is a well-known name of roto molding machine globally and have thousands of satisfied customers from each corner globally. Coming under the aegis of Reinhardt GmbH of Germany and operating from state-of-the-art plant in Vadodara, Reinhardt Roto Machine India has fast become one of the most unique rotational molding equipment and accessories manufacturer. Well taken care of Mr. Dhanu Patel and Sivinder Chawla, it has evolved into a one-stop destination for the roto molding industry. With a production area of about 6,000 square meters, they manufacture thermomechanical system solution for modern and efficient industrial products to the custom design. I welcome to Mr. Dhanu Patel for today's show. Now, I would like to welcome Mr. Vikram Bhaduria from Alok Industries. Mr. Vikram Bhaduria, he is the managing director of Alok Industry. He serves as the managing director. Alok Master Batch Alok Master Batch is the India's leading master batch company, co-creating safer, sustainable, and affordable solutions for all plastic industry. Under his leadership, the company has made steady investment in developing future steady R&D capability and addressing the growing needs of the plastic industry. Alok Industries work on a lot of R&D work for the Indian roto molding industry also. Under the leadership of Alok, has been awarded the prestigious Golden Peacock Innovation Award by Institute of Directors twice and the National Award Innovation by the Government of India twice for the work done by them. He is currently the regional chairman North Plastic Export Promotion Council. He is also an active member of Society of Plastic Engineers and American Chemical Society. In 2019, he also became the elected member of Confederation in the Delhi State Council and is a part of CI COVID Task Force in Delhi. We welcome Vikram also for this show. Now, I would like to welcome our session chairman, Mr. L.K. Singh. He is our vice chairman of ROMA and the managing director of Open Industries Private Limited at New Delhi. Everyone knows Mr. LK Singh is a truly roto guru and a leading machine and mold manufacturer company based in Delhi. Apart from the ROMA and fixomen activity, he's involved in a lot of other activities, and especially All India Plastic Manufacturers Association. He's the vice president of APMA for the North India division. We welcome Mr. LK Singh for this seminar. Now, before I hand over to Mr. LK Singh, who is the today's session chairman for the interaction session, I request all the members to ask your question to the industry experts. Handing over to Mr. LK Singh. Mr. LK
Thank
Singh.
you. Thank you, Sediji. Welcome, respected industry leaders, friends, and associates from the rotomolding industry. I'm really very pleased to have this opportunity to conduct this ROMA session of the prestigious leaders of the industry today. I will take a few minutes to appraise you about ROMA before we start the session. There was a need felt at one time to support the rotomolding industry in India and some of the countries that the Indian rotomolding industry supports in the Southeast Asia and the Middle East. Far majority of the small rotomolders are very small and neglected. Rotomolding industry is not very well logged like the injection and flow and so on and other processes. There were many stigmas and misconceptions developed in the small rotomolding industry players, basically due to the lack of knowledge and information. We estimate there are about 1,500 or more molders in India, and more if we include the nearby countries that the Indian rotomolding industry supports. Most of them are very small units. They need thus the need for a very small, low-cost, democratic rotomolding industry association developed. Rotomolding Industry Association was very much in need of the hour, and after much ado and discussions between me, Mukesh, Nidhi, Manoj, and many others, we decided to set up a small association for rotation molding alone. We organized some meets during elite conference in Mumbai, I believe in June 2019, when about 70 people got together and discussed, and over 100 people from the industry signed up to support. I believe all the raw material people, equipment suppliers, and signed this document confirming their full support to the setting up the Rotomolding Association at the conference itself. I'm sure you're all very well aware of the Indian polymer consumption is growing at the rate of almost 13% and is now around 15 million tons. And rotomolding industry is also growing at a very high rate, offering a great potential to the entrepreneurs, molders, suppliers. And this is just the beginning for rotation molding. The real demand for rotomolding is yet to develop. ROMA welcomes all the rotomolding industry worldwide to join this fast development, booming growth of the rotomolding industry in India and surrounding countries. Anyway, with this, the ROMA was formed and registered and soon had 100 paid members, and is growing much more now. ROMA held 2 major conferences in Delhi and Mumbai and was stopped short from pursuing further conferences due to the pandemic. ROMA was left with no choice then but to organize virtual webinars. Since then, ROMA has held very successful 21 webinars. This is the 22nd. From the industry leaders from UK, US, South Africa, Malaysia, besides India, presenting. And we have the next webinar to follow on the 27th of February. I'm very pleased to note that ROMA webinars are very well attended by 80 to 220 attendees. We have a great support from all chapters of the rotomolding industry, associated be it designers, consultants, and raw material suppliers, equipment suppliers, besides the main rotomolder, of course. I'm glad in the first year of inception itself, ROMA has become the largest rotomolding association in India and Asia, and I believe the 3rd largest in the world. ROMA has been busy in setting up and proposing government improved standards for tanks, underground tanks, and other products. I will not go any further. I'm going to cut myself short here. And I'm very pleased to invite the industry leaders to brief us for about 5 minutes each about their companies, products, their perception and plans for automotive future developments in India briefly. I'll start with the invitation to my friend Martin from Matrix Polymers, United Kingdom, to share his learned views. He is very well known and we have already heard about him. Good introduction from Mr. Sethi. Martin.
Thank you, Lal. I hope everyone can hear me. I'm currently talking to you from London, and yes, I'm very happy to be here talking to you. As you know, we're very supportive of ROMA's activities, and we look forward to working with you and everyone in the association in the future. So some background on what we're about. We're specialists in rotational molding materials. Everything we do is materials for the process, and we're a global business supplying rotomolders across the world. We develop and produce base polymers with our partners. We're 49% owned by PTTGC, which is a major Thai petrochemical company producing 2 million tons a year of polyethylene. And we also do compounding and grinding and have 5 plants around the world producing materials for the process. One of the key things that we're focused on is developing new materials and working closely with molders to develop the market, develop new applications and expand the industry. So we're more at the kind of cutting edge of the industry, working with materials that are perhaps a bit more advanced than the normal. So for example, the hexene C6 materials, we've done a lot of work, and in fact they dominate the supply that we make to the industry. These materials have got better feedback. So we believe that by introducing new materials, by having forums like this where there's information shared, we can help grow the industry, and we see massive opportunities for applications that aren't currently being produced in India, but are being produced in other parts of the world. So I think there's lots of opportunity to just transfer existing applications into the Indian market. So we see vast opportunity, and we want to do everything we can to help encourage that development. Lal, is there anything more you want me to add? Is that a good introduction? Can't hear you. Can't hear you, Lal.
LK, you mute.
Yeah. I would like you to say something about the perception of the future, how you see the Indian market growing and the future.
Well, obviously there's certain application areas where we're seeing big growth, like obviously the diesel tank market. Obviously it's been a tricky market the last 18 months, 2 years. The trucks and buses demand has been much lower. There's been lots of issues with that market, as I'm sure everyone is aware. But longer term, we see that being a substantial market, and you know, that's to make products like that. You really do need to use hexene or crosslink materials. So we see good growth. We see that being a substantial market in the future. Obviously it's a difficult market for molders to access. I think it's only going to be a small proportion of the industry that's going to be able to satisfy those kind of OEMs who've got very, very strict quality standards, and they're obviously it's quite a demanding applications. But yeah, we see good growth in those kind of areas where well, there's obviously just going to be big growth in the infrastructure and transportation areas longer term in India. I mean, I think everybody knows the opportunity. So the other areas, obviously, anything to do with infrastructure, we see as being major opportunity areas.
Thank you, Martin. And
Thank
that was very nicely explained. I'm going to invite the question answers after the presentations are over. I'm very pleased to invite my good friend, Dr. Paul Nugent, who has been very well introduced, and I think hardly needs an introduction. Dr. Paul Nugent is basically from USA, more recently he's been active in Malaysia, but I'm sure he'll give us his views. Paul.
Hi, Lau. Thank you, and appreciate the earlier introduction. So this is very nice. This is my first webinar with the Indian group, so nice to join you this time. I sort of echo Martin's views, I guess, in terms of the market direction, but I guess making predictions is always tough, Lau, especially when you're speaking about the future. So Polymer Link is based primarily in Malaysia. We have a subsidiary in the Philippines, and we are now within about 2 weeks of opening up our Daman facility. And so we see the Indian market as a very important one from not just the local opportunities in India, but also on a broader regional and perhaps further afield international perspective. You can see the global supply chain shifting from China, and they're looking for friendly support in countries like India. I guess the US change may not be as friendly as it was, but we still see a lot of opportunities there. And we're a smaller material company. We're not quite in Martin's league in terms of size, but we too specialize in trying to solve customers' problems, creating materials which solve specific issues. So we see ourselves bringing some of that global technology to the local market in India, and providing an indigenous footprint for supply, and bringing that technology and some new ideas and some new materials to the market.
Thank you, Paul. It's very interesting, and I'm very glad that you are coming in India and going to offer us a lot more material.
We always, yeah, sorry. I appreciate
sorry, I thought you finished.
Sorry?
You wanted to continue? Please go ahead. I thought you finished.
Sorry, I just to echo your point. So yeah, we're always happy to support the industry, and particularly ROMA. I should mention and congratulate you on becoming the largest group in India, the Southeast Asian region. That's very impressive.
Yeah. Hello.
Yeah, back to you, back to you, Lau.
You're done? Okay. Anyway, thank you, Paul. That was interesting. And I'm sure we have a lot to learn from you in future. I now take great pleasure to welcome Mr. Vikram Bhadoria, Alok Master Batches. He's a very close family friend and a very learned person from Princeton, USA, with factories all over India and in Paraguay, in South America. He is an avid motorcyclist and a mountaineer, besides various activities that Mr. Sethi has briefed us. I welcome Vikram's thoughts, and welcome, Vikram. Please go ahead.
Thank you, LK, and greetings everyone who's here. Just a quick overview of the company for, I know most of you over here, but in case anyone doesn't know about the company, Alok is a master batch manufacturer. We are based out of India, and we have plants in north, west, as well as south of India, and we have a joint venture facility in South America. Size-wise, we are around $70 million this year, which have been closing the year at a little shade over $70 million. And we have been associated with the rotomolding industry for a very, very long time. The company is now 27 years old, and a few of our first customers were rotomolders. So we've transitioned from making black master batch for the tanks down to powders, now to make specialty additives and colorants for the industry. So more than commerce, it's the friends that I've made in the industry, and I really treasure the friendships that I have in the rotomolding industry. So I just want to give you, when LK said that talk about technology or the industry, so I wanted to give you my perspective, because as a master batch manufacturer, we have a finger in every pie, and we look out for trends of what's happening, and I'd like to share my perspectives with you, and how do they affect the rotomolding industry in India. So I personally follow societal and industrial trends. So I sit in a lot of these associations on policy making bodies. Also, I interact a lot with the youngsters, what they are doing, what they see the country's future as, the societal future as. So I want to share my inputs on that. So I start with the industrial trend, which is something that we'll all understand very clearly. So the government of India has launched the Jal Jeevan Mission and the Department of Drinking Water and Sanitation. Now, under this scheme, the government aims to provide safe and adequate drinking water through individual households through tap connections in rural India by 2024. At the same time, there is another scheme that has been launched, which is the Jal Shakti Abhiyan, which is aimed at water conservation. I don't need to talk about the importance of water and how scarce and how precious it is. So the outlay for this scheme is around 3.5 lakh crores. You can imagine in the next 3 years, this is the amount allocated for water. This involves water transportation, water storage, as well as water conservation. So there are multiple industries which we see will benefit and grow with this schemes, namely pipes, geotextiles, and most importantly, the rotomolding industry. So we are following this very closely. We hope that the Prime Minister's vision of providing clean drinking water to every household translates into a lot of opportunity for the Indian industry. Now, with the new push of Atmanirbhar Bharat, I'm glad that now we have a government which has finally realized that manufacturing cannot be a laggard in your GDP contribution. You need to have manufacturing as a major contributor to your GDP contribution. So, despite the situation we are in today, with the prices, availability, the future, in my opinion, looks to be bright for our industry. Coming to the societal trends, this section is a bit on the lighter note. So, there's a lot of influence of the Western society, the Western way of living on India. So, and the individuality of the Western society, that's the in thing right now. So all the youngsters, they want to be different. Everyone wants something which is very unique to them. So my favorite place of observing people is at the airports. So I haven't been traveling much past year, but my readings are that everyone looks the same. They wear the same blue jeans. Everyone sports the same Virat Kohli beard, the same haircut, but everyone wants to be different. So eventually, how this individualism will be exhibited will be in customization of the products that they buy. So one of the things I foresee is that rotomolding will benefit a great deal from this, because you are an industry where you can make customized products and you don't have to make millions of them. You can make few designs. You can keep changing the designs. That is the flexibility that the process offers. So societally, I think this the drive to be individualistic, to be different, to do something different, to have a different maybe water tank, to have a different bench, to have a different piece of furniture. That should bode well for Satish and of the other industry members. The turnaround time in design should increase. People want faster, more designs every year, and it is a segment which is not, the injection molding industry will not be able to serve, because they are in the mass market region. So they can produce thousands of parts every day. But we as roto molders, our USP is that you can make 100 parts in a month and change the mold design. So these were the two observations I wanted to share with the forum. If there's anything else you would like me to talk about or share, I'd love to carry on.
Your future plans for India?
So just last month, I inaugurated another plant in South India, in Tamil Nadu. So the construction is in full swing. By July of this year, we'll start this plant. So we are targeting the Southeast Asia market, as well as the textile, geotextile product segments. And of course, wherever the plant comes up, there's also a powdering facility also. So we are doubling the powdering capacity in the south of India than what we have existing in West.
Thank you. Vikram, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vikram. Yeah, this was very interesting. I'm sure you'll find a great support to the automotive industry. We hope to see you more often on our stage, Vikram. Thank you. Now, I'm very pleased to welcome my friend Danu Patel from Reinhardt. He too is very well known, needs no introduction, and Mr. Sethi has already introduced him, and I'm sure he has a lot to tell us about equipment. Welcome, Danu.
Thank you, LK. Thank you, Roma, for a nice introduction and getting us all wizards together. But finally, magic stays with the customer, not us, really. We've actually developed a lot of new things, taken advantage of the COVID times, where there was a total lockdown. We developed a few new ideas, new mechanisms, which leads to faster production as well as more economical production. In fact, recently we have been installing machines, which I think is a real feather in anyone's cap, is doing it remotely. We have been installing giant size machines sitting here in the office or in the factory, and the machines are coming up in Australia. I would say it's really thanks to COVID and no traveling, and we spend more time at home. Who could ask for a better deal than this? As compared to the normal business atmosphere, the normal business trend that is happening, as everybody sees it in India, there is no shortage of business. I think the business has increased tremendously. In fact, it has almost doubled even after the lockdown. So even in a 9-month period of last year, I think most cases, sales, production, everything has increased. So have the prices. The prices have also gone up, which has really cut into the margins of people, because the market is still not ready to accept this kind of price increase. And this is a major point to worry. Especially if you look at this month, if you look at last month, and if you probably look at next month, your costs will definitely go up tremendously. Will we have a 20% increase in everything we do on that? I doubt very much. So there will be huge cuts in our pockets and that, but I guess this shall also pass. We started our plant with a smaller area of 1,000 square meters. And today we are not at 6,000, we are at 10,000 square meters. This is taken from the year 92 till today. So it's almost 30 years in line. Since the year 2000, we have been in technical know-how with Reinhardt Germany, where we got all the designs, drawings. We still enjoy that support. But most of the things that we do today are quite independent of any foreign input. Which means with our rotational molding experience and with Raina's experience in machine building and that, combined total experience comes to about 115 years, which is not easy to beat. It's like the Mercedes ad saying I'm as young as 115. So that's where we stand today. We enjoy our customers, like Vikram rightly says, they are not customers, most of them are good friends, and carry on being good friends forever, whether we are in business together or not. 90% of our sales is with repeat customers, with repeat friends. The 10% additional friends that we make every year will become repeat in a year or two again. So we really build milestones of friendships. Thank you. Thank you, Lal. Thank you very much. We can't hear you. We can't hear you. Lal, you're on mute.
You can hear me now, I hope. Anyway,
Yes,
thank you, Dano. That was a very nice presentation. I'm sure you'll be a great support to the industry in India and around country. I'm now very pleased to welcome my friend Gary from Cape Town, South Africa. I have actually two favorite people from South Africa, Aaron and Gary Lankin. I'm delighted to have at least one of them here. Please welcome a great friend. Gary is no stranger to us. We have a lot to learn from him. I welcome Gary to tell us more about the secrets of the success of rotation molding. Gary.
Hi, Lal. I hope you can hear me.
Yeah. Can I request everyone to put on their videos? We can't see them. You might keep the sound off, but video is welcome.
I think my video is on and my sound's on. I hope everything is okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Good day, guys. Nice to be back with the ROMA group again. Been with you guys since inception. Seen ROMA grow from strength to strength, and I'm honored to be invited to sit on this panel of what you're calling the so-called experts. I think I know what I'm talking about. I'm not sure about expert, but I've been around for 28 years as a rotor molder. From 1979, I started rotor molding until 2007. And we were producing as many as 3,500 rotor molded parts a day. So we were pretty high-speed rotor molders with only 8 simple home-built machines. Way back in 1999, we were involved with ROMA, which is the start of ROMA through ARMSA. And I invited guest speakers out to South Africa, and Roy Crawford, of course, who we all know and unfortunately has passed away. He came to South Africa a couple of times, but in 1999, he actually saw my version of temp logger, which is my first home-built temp logger, and he said to me, I've got to sell it to the world. And I said, I can't. I was entitled or allowed to build it for myself, but not sell it because of patents. So basically, cut a long story short, you all know temp logger, or most of you know temp logger today. I started building temp logger furiously, and by 2004, I sold my first one to another good friend who is unfortunately also passed away today, Eric Bush, and that was my first sale. And then temp logger took off from there, and I was still rotor molding while I started selling temp logger. And at the same time, I started consulting because people wanted temp logger, but they couldn't get and achieve what I told them they could do with it. So I was invited over to companies to go and help them run their temp loggers and get them going. And that's how I got into the consulting and temp logger side. I think most of you have seen how I started with hand rock and hand roll machines, and ended up with state-of-the-art, in my opinion, home-built temperature monitored machines running at 300 degrees in a minute. And so we achieved all this through the use of the original Rotolog, and then eventually our Templogger. And yeah, that's basically, I think you guys mentioned most of the rest of what people need to know about me in your introduction. I can just quickly say we are now actually officially in 68 countries, hopefully by the end of the month, 69. Yeah, so we're spreading our wings. COVID has had an influence on us. What we are finding, and there is a big call in India, especially for below ground tanks. And the more you go into technical tanks and technical products, rather than just a water tank standing on the ground, you need to know what you're doing. So we're getting a bigger and bigger call for Templogger on machines. There's actually been a very interesting development in the EU. They're going to sponsor what they call intelligent molds. So a mold sold with the Templogger is what we're aiming to do, and we hopefully get our first order this month or early next month. Due to COVID, I've had to actually look for some other work because sitting here stuck. So I've started consulting and doing startup companies in South Africa, which is looking a bit good at the moment, maybe 2 or 3 companies. So yeah, there's been some interesting developments on our side. As I think most of you have been part of ROMA, I think I've attended just about every meeting and every webinar. And I'd just like to say congratulations on the status that you're in already. I see you claim to be the 3rd biggest in the world. And it's a real privilege for me to be on this panel. And I'll end on my side from just saying that we offer design of anything, okay? Design of molds, material, sounds strange, but yes, products, machines, we improve guys' machines. And what COVID did to us made us sit down and think again, and we hope to launch Templogger 7, which should be the smallest and most potent little system next month, finally. So yeah, and look forward to the rest of the meeting, and congratulations to ROMA on a great job so far. Thank you, Lal.
Thank you, Gary. That was very interesting and very good to know some development that you're doing. But you've always been very popular amongst the Indian rotomolders, and it's always a pleasure to hear you. Gentlemen, I'm now glad to open the session for question and answers. If there are any further queries, please feel free to ask your question, put up your questions to Manoj Patria, who's here, or to me. And you can also write to us with specific details in the future. Manoj already has some questions received earlier, which I'm sure he'll address. And I'm sure the respective presenters will answer the questions. Can I invite some more questions? Manoj,
yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks to all respected speakers for this today's webinar. I have a few questions from industry. First of all, one of our customer from Pune is asking about how is the global rotomolding market in terms of business performance and growth. He is asking this question from Mr. Martin Cole. Can I repeat again? How is the global rotomolding market in terms of business performance and growth?
Okay, so business performance generally, I think, is very buoyant. It's impossible to have any kind of clear statistics in terms of the global market, because it's obviously the industry doesn't have any kind of published numbers. There's nobody doing any specific work on you know, an overview of the global rotomolding market. But certainly what we're seeing across our business globally is growth everywhere. In fact, we had a record year in every single region in terms of supplying material to the rotomolding industry, and I think that's on the back of growth everywhere. We're seeing it across the world, and we just, I mean, to be honest with you, we're quite mystified. You know, we've all been going through the lockdowns and all the COVID issues, and you know, you'd have expected demand to have suffered in many areas, and it just hasn't. Our biggest issues at the moment are capacity and being able to produce enough material, and particularly in certain areas like our European business, you know, we're just having to live with very, very long lead times, and it's a real struggle. But it's very positive. The market is very strong. That's just a general comment about the whole market. Obviously, India seems to be recovering strongly, and we're seeing obviously there's good growth and massive potential. We believe in the South Asian market, but same throughout the whole of Asia. We see the whole of Asia as being really the future of the sort of growth generator of the rotor molding industry globally.
Thank you, Martin. Manoj, before I start, can I invite everyone else to put their questions in the chat box and we'll take them up. So Manoj, please go ahead.
Yeah. This question is for Mr. Paul Nugent. One of our Mumbai-based customer is asking a question about what is the new product developed in Indian or overseas market in last 1 year, or is there any new applications developed in rotor molding that is not seen earlier? This is new product or application developed in this globally in last 1 year. This is for Paul Nugent.
Interesting. I think I'm like most people. We've been stuck in one place for a long time, but yeah, I see sort of the marketplace information you get from Australia. I don't know if you've seen the booklets that Armo has published on there, but they've got some very interesting products that they've they put together. Excuse me. You know, you can see, you know, there's obviously supply chain products, the vaccine delivery systems that the people are looking at to try and sort of speed up delivery and keep vaccines cool. So that's maybe not so new, but it's certainly got some interesting pressure from recent activities. There's still a lot of sort of Me Too type products around the world, but there's always opportunities when you bring a new product from one country where it's well established to a new country where it's not established. So you get some, you know, if you look at the Australian, they've got applications now for hairdressing salons, which are kind of interesting. And of course, all the various expeditions and display furnitures and those types of things. But I think we're still very much rotor molding in our major sort of markets, you know, the tanks, containers, chemical areas. But you know, depending on the local markets or the local region you're in, you're going to have automotive and diesel tanks in Australia are strong, or sorry, India is strong, and obviously, you know, the information that Vikram was sharing in terms of the water conservation that's going to push products sort of storage capacity and treatment. But for specific products, I don't have a specific magic product that I would point to at the moment. So.
Yeah, thanks. Mr. Kannan, yeah. Mr. Kannan is here, and he is a consultant to some rotor molding company globally. I think this is a US-based company. So, Mr. Kannan, you can directly ask a question to forum. Mr. Kannan?
Yeah,
are you here?
Fine. Thank you, Manoj Patria. And actually, as he rightly said, you know, I've taken up the consultancy after retiring from Reliance Industries, and I have two questions on rotor molding. I have clients on rotor molding, so I have two basic questions. One is it possible to have leak-proof joint with rotor molded parts?
Can Gary answer that? Gary, your sound is off.
It's unmuted. Am I unmuted?
Yep.
Okay. Yes, most definitely. We've been rotomolding liquids and CBTs and materials like that that are as viscous as a beer or water, and you need 100% sealed molds. So yes, it's not a problem. We can do it in mild steel. We can do it in aluminium. It's achievable. It's not easy to explain it all over the internet, but the first, over the Zoom meeting. But the first thing you've got to do, obviously, is the flanges. When we build a mold, no matter what process we build it in, we always start with the flange, and then we build the rest of the mold into the flange. Because if the mold is designed and built properly, there's no reason why it shouldn't be watertight. You only need the first 0.01 of the joint line to actually seal, and thereafter it's sealed. And obviously, one of the biggest problems we have in the industry is the disrespect for molds and the parting line. So you can make the world's best molds, and in one day or one cycle, the guys can damage it. So looking after molds, cleaning it before you close the molds. When you want a watertight mold, one of the tricks in the industry and the process is fill the mold while it's closed. Don't fill it while it's open. So there's lots of little things you can do to keep your molds running. But yeah, it's not a problem to mold, make a mold that's watertight. We have molds.
I'll interrupt here. I'm not sure he was asking about molds. He meant about the rotomolded product itself being seamless.
Yeah, well, you got to have a seamless. You got to have a good parting line to make us. You can't make a seamless part without the parting. The parting line is our problem, okay, which makes it seam. Brings the seam, okay, and that's the thing that's got to be hidden. And as I think you've all heard me speak numerous times, how to hide the seam, the joint line, so that you don't see the seam. But the only other thing you can do, the only seamless, totally seamless part we've molded and I've done with customers is when you mold flexible, highly flexible materials, and you can pull them through the vent hole. But that is very, very rare. So I doubt whether that's going to be what he's after. Yeah, you need a seam because you got to open the mold, and that's your parting line. So if you make the parting line waterproof, airtight, leak-proof, you basically have a seamless mold. I don't know if that's answering the question. I hope it does, but that's the way I understand it, because that is the big.
I hope that answers your question. Please ask another.
Yeah, thank you very much. Actually, mine is not on the parting line. There are two parts of rotomolder which we are joining together, and that joint should be leak-proof. That's precisely we are looking at.
Now, did you mean
joining two parts
to be joined?
Yeah. No, not joining. We are just putting together, so that there should be.
Mr. Cannon, each and every rotomolded part is virtually seamless, or it wouldn't work. Every tank, every part you see. Rotomolding parts are, as a principle, you could say seamless because they are welded together. And Gary is saying that the difficult end part needs a very good mold to do it, even liquids and so on.
Lowell, sorry, the question's actually 100% opposite to what I just answered. He's talking about, if I get it right now, making two parts and joining them, okay? That is a whole new different game, and that brings in fusion welding or spin welding or many other processes to join two parts together. And definitely you will always have a seam when you weld two parts together. So I don't know if the question is now being changed and if we're addressing it. But yes, you can. People join parts all the time. Some of them successfully, some of them not successfully. But spin welding is one way to join things, depending on the size. Fusion welding is another way. Welding is another way. So there's plenty of ways to do it, if that's answering his question now.
Yeah, fine. Thank you. And actually, is it possible to have a mechanical locking without any welding process?
Well, then you're going to need a seal. Then you need a seal.
Mechanically, yeah, you could do it. You could even bolt it. But I'm not sure how leak-proof that would be.
Okay, fine.
If it's got to be leak-proof and seamless, then mechanical is very difficult. because of tolerances, but it can be done. We've done it again, but then you normally need to introduce a seal just to take up any tolerance.
Okay, okay, I got it. And I have one more question. What is the minimum thickness possible with the two-colored product?
I don't know if any of you saw, I showed a 7-layer part, skin foam skin at one of the ROMA conferences, and there we were doing 0.5 millimeter. Okay, and I've got clients in Czech Republic who makes a 3-part polyethylene, and there he's doing about a 0.75 millimeter. So if you, it's very difficult to make very thin parts because you're going to have failure somewhere. So you need to look at the whole process. You need to look at the mold. You need to look at the spider. You need to look at the airflow. Because if you don't have totally even heating and totally even cooling, you've got absolutely no chance. And especially with multi-layer, because when you lay up the first layer and you've got thick and thin parts, the second layer is going to be totally affected by that. So the first layer, and if any of you heard Drew Law speak about foaming, he always says, before you foam, try and mold at least a 1 millimeter skin evenly everywhere. And that's a challenge to 99% of rotomolders. So that is a very good bit of advice. If you can't mold a thin skin everywhere properly, don't even try the second layer, especially foaming.
Okay.
Hope that answers the question.
Hi,
yeah, thank you very
much. What product would require something like less than 1 millimeter? Mr. Kanan?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Where would you apply a product which is less than 1 millimeter?
No. I'm asking only the minimum thickness possible. See, I'm fine with 2 mm plus, but not definitely more than 3 mm.
Okay.
2 mm is no problem whatsoever.
2 mm is not a problem at all.
Okay. Because we are working on the costing of the product. Actually, we found anything above 2 mm is we are finding it difficult on the cost economics. So actually, it's a 2-color. One side is say white, other side is a black color. So, and we are not looking at aesthetic is not very important, but the should be should be opaque in nature. So that's what we are looking at.
The biggest problem I encounter in India, okay, is that you guys use stainless steel molds, and then you have thick stainless steel flanges. So if you're going to try and do any thin part, and you're not going to preheat your mold, you're going to have the inner layer coming through the outer layer. So I fight against this in India every day with just about every rotomolder. Your mold is important, the spider is important, your parting line is important. When you're trying to do thin layers, even speed is important. So yeah, there are lots of things to address. You can write to me privately and we can see if I can give you some advice or help.
Okay, thank you.
Gary. Mr. Gary, that answers. Manoj, we have some questions in the box also.
Mr. Sushil, Mr. Sushil ji from Kaveri Plasto. Sushil ji, are you here?
Yeah. Hello, everyone. I have a general question for the water tank rotomolders, which everyone must be having. In India, the weight of a 5,000 liters 2-layer is ranging around 110 to 120 kgs, whereas outside India, people are making somewhere 80 to 90 kgs a 2-layer tank. So on this, can someone give some light so that other molders can have some benefit and understanding on this?
I think Gary can answer that.
Yeah, I can answer that. Around the world, most people are running around about 90 to 95 kilograms. In South Africa, we've gone as low as 78 kilograms for 5,000. I'm against that kind of thin tank because some molders who can't mold the even skins that we were talking about earlier are having failures all the time, but they're just having to reduce the weights to be competitive. So I would be very, very comfortable globally if there was a global standard on water tanks to have about a 90 to 95 kilo. I think 110 to 120 is overkill. We've done all FEA tests, prove that you only need about 2 millimeters to keep 5,000 in. But we know because of creep that's not possible. So you're looking at a minimum of 3.5 to 4 millimeters, but try and get it even everywhere. And yeah, to reduce the tank weight, there's a thing called uneven walls, which you want a thicker base and a thinner top. But that's also dangerous if you don't know what you're doing. I'm sure Danu's experienced this around the world. Yeah, I think Danu and myself are I think we're on the same page here. We say mold fast tank, even wall thickness, and really well, and you can reduce your weights. Danu?
Yes, you can. Also, you got to use the right material. Out here, most of the people are using butene. With butene, you cannot go to less than 100 kilos. But with hexene from Matrix or from any reputed hexene supplier, you can definitely go down to 80 kilos comfortably. And 2-layer is...
Yeah, Danu, sorry, the 90 to 90...
would help in controlling the wall thickness and some weight.
Yes, any temperature monitoring system is very important, but what we're doing with the temperature monitoring system is we're making sure that our environment around the mold is correct and the inside. Most people think it's just measuring the inside. No, your environment around the mold has to be even everywhere, because I'm sure I'm very well known for fast, even heating, fast, even cooling is the best way to rotomold. Okay, but if you can't evenly heat and you can't evenly cool, you're going to have problems. So yeah, that's my principle: fast, even heating, fast. And I agree with Danu. Obviously, hexene you can get away with a little bit less. When I say 90 to 95 kilos, I'm including butene. I know hexene probably get more comfortable at the 85 to 90 and butene 90 to 95. In South Africa, when I was rotomolding, we didn't have hexene. And I must have produced probably a couple of 100,000 water tanks, 72 every day in butene, and we were doing 85 kilos, and I never ever had comebacks, never ever had comebacks, because we knew what we were doing, we cured them properly. You can have the best material in the world, you can ask Martin, if you have the best material in the world and you don't process it properly, you got nothing. You don't get the properties. Martin?
100% agree. Absolutely, Gary. Yeah. You've got to have the right design.
That was good. Can we go on to more questions, Manoj? There's some of the chat box.
Mr. Natik from Maharashtra Mahapoli class. Natik?
Now, before you do that, just to clarify, the conversation is about butene and hexene, but the specification that Sushil is pointing out there is probably much more to do with the actual underlying density and melt index range that's chosen for the materials.
Yeah.
We supply hexene, we supply butene, but you can use both those for a 5,000 liter tanks. That's not the threshold for taking over. If you want to go to hexene, it's beneficial for bigger tanks. But if you're comparing a 90 kilo tank, 110 kilo tank, you need to make sure you're comparing the specification, not just the full model.
Yeah, I would echo what Paul's just said. Most people here using like 935, 930 material. In other parts of the world, people are using 939, either butene or hexene. But the difference between a 935 and a 939 is about 15%. So you have a lot more stiffness with the higher density.
That's interesting.
So if you use a higher density,
yeah.
Thank you.
Can I tell you, all the years that we molded butene, we molded a 939, exactly what Martin was saying, with a 3 melt index, and we had no issues whatsoever. When hexenes came out, they came out with a 3.5. The problem with hexene is it's just a little bit more difficult to grind if you're doing your own grinding, but it's a tougher, better environmental stress, crack resistant, better chemical resistant, all those sort of things. But for water tank, it's not needed. Thank you.
Yeah, I would just echo that it could be for a 5,000 litre. It depends obviously on design, and as Gary said, the processing is absolutely crucial as well. But we supply a lot of butene 938, 939 density, as well as hexene grades for that kind of size tank. So it's not just a hexene butene thing, but obviously with hexene, innately it's tougher, and as Gary quite correctly said, it's harder to grind. So if you're doing your own grinding, that it's slower in output. But it really, I think the answer to the actual question, which is to do with shot weight differences, I think that's primarily, as Paul said, it's really down to the density.
Good, thank you. Manoj, you have some more queries? Manoj, you have some queries on the chat over Naitik? Can we invite Naitik? Or
Yeah, good afternoon, Naitik over here. So this question is for Mr. Paul Nugent or Martin Coles. Like, what are the chances of getting HDP grade in India? Like, because the availability for the same is very less.
We supply HD.
We have HD available as well. What's your specification, Naitik?
So basically, we have a density of 0.94 more. It is for some chemical tanks. Hello, you can hear me?
Yeah, sorry, can you clarify?
Yeah, so basically we have some requirement for plus 0.94 density plus. It is basically for some chemical tanks.
Okay.
Yeah, so basically initially we'll be requiring for some R&D purposes. So what are the possibilities of getting it in India? Like,
you can reach out, send us a message. We'll send you details. I guess Martin could do the same. So.
Can I just ask the question? Why does it have to be HDPE?
So basically, it should stand minus 40 degrees Celsius and plus 75 degrees basically.
But why not? So why are you actually specifically saying HDPE and not LLDPE?
So basically, this is some gaseous. In this, some gaseous substances are going to be stored basically inside. And the strength for it's basically a kind of shell, basically a long shell.
Okay.
And some gas, yeah.
But is there any reason why you're asking for HDPE rather than LLDPE? Are you hung up by the term HDPE, or it's
so
about
basically so basically it's the client's requirement to get it in HDPE basically.
They're actually specifying it's got to be HDPE.
Yeah.
I don't know whether this helps, but if I just explain something. Polyethylene is typically, the density goes from around 920 generally up to about 960 density, and for customs purposes there's a cutoff between lower density and high density. So what you hear of LLDPE, it cuts off at well, the highest LLDPE is 939. The cutoff is at 940. So if a material is 940, it becomes an HDPE for customs purposes. And if it's a 939, it's an LLDPE. There's actually no difference other than 1 point of density. It's just actually where the arbitrary line is for customs. So if you were looking at a 940 density HDPE and 939 LLDPE, in real life, it doesn't make any difference. But in terms of something on a data sheet, one is called an HDPE and the other is an LLDPE. So so I don't know if that helps you, but that's the reality.
Yeah,
so
basically
most rotomolding grades that are HDPE are 940, or we have one that's a 943. The thing is, as you go up in density, you get more crystallinity in the polymer and you get more shrinkage. And obviously with more shrinkage, you get more warpage. And rotomolding, as everyone on this webinar understands, rotomolding is very sensitive to warpage, and you don't want too much of it, which is one of the reasons why people don't want to go too high in density.
Okay, so I'll be just sending some mails. You can just send me the specifications for the same, then for the HD grade.
Yeah.
Naitik, a quick question for you. Does the customer know the difference in HDP and LLDP, or is he just calling it HDP?
No, basically the density is more than it's basically the density is 0.942 basically. It's the requirement.
Okay. Normally, the customer doesn't know what is HDP and LLDP. What is the difference?
Yeah.
No, basically they have a specific requirement basically. So they are expert in plastic basically.
Be nice to your friends, Danu.
I am extremely but I like to educate them as well.
No, that's very good. Anyway, we have
Agreed.
more questions. I have Rohit waiting to ask a question. Rohit, can I invite Rohit to ask?
Yeah, very good afternoon to everybody. Thank you, LK Singh Saab, Manoj ji. My question is basically for Martin Coles. We could see a lot of raw material manufacturers trying to come to India for capturing a good share of the market. As we all know that India is a very big market, and simultaneously a lot of competition also rises with the Indian market. So do you find any challenge in terms of pricing structure for the Indian market? If really yes, then what are your strategies and plans to cope up with those pricing restructuring so that you can have a bigger share of the Indian market, especially for the auto sector?
Yeah, I didn't catch entirely all of that because the link isn't very good. But you're talking about pricing, and you're talking about supply coming into India from outside of India. Is that really what you're talking about?
Yeah, I'm asking the market for the India is very competitive. So do you find any challenge in terms of getting a share of market or not getting a share of market because of the pricing structure in the Indian market?
Well, it depends on which part of the market you're talking about.
Automobile sector, especially for the engineering components like fuel tanks and those kinds of products.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the general purpose commodity markets, yes, it's obviously very dominated by particularly Reliance and other producers in India, and it's difficult to be competitive with those kind of butane standard grades that are produced domestically. So our focus is on those higher performing materials like the hexenes that I mentioned earlier. And it's obviously we're targeting applications where the higher performance actually is of value, where you can actually benefit and create value by using higher performing grades. So yeah, we're finding it. I mean, it is a very competitive market. There's no question about it. Yeah. I think everyone though recognizes that it's the rotor molding market has got a tremendous growth opportunity, and I certainly believe that there are literally thousands of applications that aren't being rotor molded in India that will be in the future, and a lot of those are going to need better materials. And so I guess we're, like other people from outside of India, very interested in working to try and help develop the market, trying to work with molders to introduce new applications, and obviously we're trying to offer materials that are different from the normal materials you see in the domestic market. I mean, in terms of supply, I mean, obviously there are some materials that are coming into India from Europe. We're supplying with some materials from Europe. Obviously they're more expensive, there's longer lead time. So we're focused, most of what we're supplying into India is actually coming from Thailand. As I said earlier, we're partners with PTT Global Chemical. That's one of Southeast Asia's biggest polyethylene producers. So we think we're in a fairly strong position because we have got regional supply, and we've got exceedingly good materials, particularly focused on the hexene grades. So yeah, it's a competitive market, but I think most people see the opportunity and are looking really at the longer term.
Okay, but pricing still remains a big challenge for the automobile market for the specialized grades of materials. And because of the pricing structure, actually the kind of a market which was supposed to get developed for rotomolding in India is not getting developed. So how can we really cope up with such kind of a situation?
Well, that's not my understanding. My understanding it is developing and is growing.
Okay, it is developing.
Sorry, Martin, if I could just say a word on pricing. Everybody in the world is always talking pricing. Okay, I say look at your process faster, process better, and you can design better, and you can actually save a material. Because most people, to get a minimum wall thickness, especially in something like a fuel tank, they're having to add more weight to get a minimum wall thickness. Focus on other things, and you will reduce your costs, and get a better material, okay, that you can process faster and better.
Fine. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah,
Manoj, can you go to more questions? Yeah.
Yeah. Mr. Sethi, are you here?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Now this question is for Mr. Vikram. Do you have any forming agent, single shot forming agent you have developed in master batch for rotomolding industry? You're on mute. Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. Yes, we have the ADC based foaming agent, or if you want, we have the endothermic foaming agents also.
My question is for single shot forming. Do you have developed anything in single shot forming?
Yeah. No, quite frank, to be honest, not for single shot. I haven't tried if these foaming agents would work in that application or not.
No, it is quite a useful material for the single shot forming for the lot of new applications. So if you can work on this thing, definitely it will be useful for all rotomolders in India.
Sure, if you'd be willing to partner up with us for the research, I'd be glad to. Yeah, I'll connect with you offline on this then.
Sorry, can I just say something on this one? Can I say something on the one-shot foaming? The one-shot foaming, I've tried one-shot foaming over the last 30 years, okay? And I think we've got it pretty down to the best that you can get it. I've worked with guys like Drew, who really seems to specialize in one-shot and foaming and stuff. The problem with one-shot is it's not reliable. You can't always guarantee the outer skin. So it depends on the product. If you need a good outer even layer, it's very difficult. So, and if you don't have process control and you don't have proper design and all the things that I've repeated myself at least 10 times today, proper even heating and that, don't even try one-shot foaming. It's a waste of time, waste of money. And most manufacturers who've gone down that line have given up on it. Martin, I don't know, you, Paul, I don't know if you guys have got something to say, but one-shot foaming has never really been 100% successful.
Yeah,
it works.
I totally agree with you. We
custom molding product where the double charging is very difficult. Specialized palletized content or something where second charge is very difficult. So
there's ways.
One-shot suffers from the. Okay.
Sorry, everybody's talking over everybody. Paul?
I was saying that specialized product where the double charge is very difficult to charge every time. So that is the only solution. Either we should go for the single shot forming. So it is possible basically. We are using this product, but we want a very specialized thing. Indian people can develop this product. Definitely, it's helpful for Indian rotomolders.
Rajesh, we have about 3 different ways of loading very, very quickly. Okay, we can load a 50 kilogram second shot in 25 seconds and evenly and consistently. So there are ways of doing it, but so loading is not an issue. We've been doing this for 20 years, and I'm doing it all over the Middle East, and I've tried it with 1 or 2 Indian guys. So it's double shots and triple shots, up to 7 layers. We're doing it. It's crazy, but we're doing it. But I think Paul was trying to say something, and we kept talking over him. Paul, I don't know if you got to have a chance.
Basically, it's a custom molding product. The gap with the two wall is only 25 millimeters. So second charging is very difficult, basically.
No, it's not difficult. It's very easy.
Okay, I'll connect with you.
Yeah. Okay.
And the next question for Mr. Vikram: that do you have any fire retardant rate for your rotomolding application?
What is? I'll have to understand the application. There are many flame retardant rates, mostly limited not by performance, but by the regulation that you need to follow. Because
specialized material handling and the garbage containers, where it is required that it should be a fire retardant, basically.
Where is it going to be used? Is it going to be exported out or within India?
No, is outdoor application. Yeah.
Is it within India? Which economy? India or EU or US?
India.
India. Then yes, I can give you the product.
Some industry where the chemical industries are there, they want the pellets to be of fire retardant, basically.
Yes, we have the products for this application.
Okay. Yeah. That is readily available.
Yeah.
Can I just add that we developed a flame retardant V0 at 3mm wall thickness, UL94, which is the kind of most widely internationally known flame retardant standard, American standard, Underwriters Laboratory. So that's it's V0, which is the highest level of rating on the UL94 test, and that's at 3mm wall thickness. So because obviously the thicker the wall thickness, the more flame retardant it becomes, or the more it passes. It's easier to pass the test. But we can actually get to V0 at 3mm.
Okay, that's good. Yeah. So it is a V0 category.
V0, yeah.
Martin, can I just ask you a question there? That's very interesting. We've had lots of calls for that, with our mining industry, but is it toxic when it burns? This is the biggest problem. Most flame retardants, when they actually burn, they become toxic. Is yours toxic or non-toxic?
To be honest, I don't know the answer to the question, but I mean the whole thing about the
I'll speak to you privately, but that's one of the biggest problems. It's flame retardant retards, but it doesn't stop. Yeah. Yes, Paul.
Answer your question, Gary. Yeah.
Okay. Good.
Two categories, and to Rajesh's point, you have halogen-based versions and non-halogen. And so, as Vikram is saying, Vikram, I think your system for India will be a halogen-based system.
That's very cool. That was the genesis of my question, that if it's for EU, then I won't be giving a halogen-based system.
So you have to you can have a halogen-based system in Southeast Asia because the environmental laws are a lot more relaxed. So we have retardant systems. Typically we go for 4mm, Martin, but 3mm is good. Well done. But if you want the non-halogen, Rajesh, it's a different chemistry, and Gary, in that case, it passes the US and the EU regulation. So we have non-halogen based as well.
Okay, thanks, Paul. I might be talking to you. Thanks.
Thank you, Paul.
I have a question, Gary.
Sure.
For Gary, sorry, have all the hairdressers gone on strike during COVID in South Africa?
Hey man, what's the matter with my? When it's long, you moan. When it's short, you moan. When it's scruffy, you moan.
I didn't say it was wrong.
Paul, stick to rotomolding, man.
That's good.
Anyway, we need a laugh. Thanks, Paul.
Manoj, go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Rajan is asking about PP rotomolding, future of PP rotomolding in globally or India also. So how is this graded our product may popular in India or globally, PP rotomolding? So this question is for Mr. Martin Cole and Paul Nugent.
Okay, polypropylene is a difficult material to rotomold, and it's more expensive than polyethylene. One of the main reasons is because it's difficult to grind and more expensive to grind. But also, it needs to be compounded to put the various additives in that make it suitable for rotomolding. Inherently, it's a material that's not great at low temperature, and so that restricts what you can do with it in rotomolding as well. We do have some polypropylene grades, but to be honest with you, they've never really taken off massively. You know, we only supply, I don't know, it's just a few trucks a month globally, so it's not a massive business. So we don't see a significant future. We see it in certain very niche areas where you benefit from the higher temperature resistance compared with polyethylene, but those applications are actually fairly limited for polypropylene. Paul, do you want to say anything?
Yeah, I echo that, Martin. You're absolutely right. I mean, I guess polypropylene is almost like the holy grail for rotomolding. If we could get it to work at low temperature and grind on a normal machine, it would just be perfect. Lower density, lower cost, etc., etc. But it's got all those challenges. I mean, you know that PSD Rotoworks has a material coming out of Thailand, and they've been trying to push it for the last 3-4 years, 5 years. And as Martin says, it's taken up in certain applications, but they haven't been fortunate enough yet to hit on a major market. But who asked the question again? Sorry. Right. Who asked the question?
You want the question repeated?
No, the person whoever asked the question. What is your target for polypropylene? What do you want to use it for? What's your application?
Manoj, we can't hear you.
Manoj, yes, off. Switch on there.
For chemical and furniture market.
So it's chemical resistant.
Market.
Sorry, say it again, Manoj.
For chemical industry and the furniture industry.
Furniture market.
But for the furniture market, so okay, I mean you can produce a polyethylene which is almost as stiff as polypropylenes, which have been modified for rotomolding. Because I mean, by the time you take a polypropylene modified for rotomolding, you have to soften it. It can't act like an impact modified polypropylene straight. So if you want to make something which is stiff, talk to your supplier. They may be able to give you something which is close to it, or make you something special.
Yeah, if I can just add there, Paul, another thing that we find is polyprop and XLDPE need to be processed at higher temperatures, and most people don't get there and can't get there, and then they fail anyway. So you don't get the properties of the polyprop that you're trying to get. So higher processing is another problem.
Higher temp logger, Gary.
Sorry?
That's why they need a temp logger.
Yeah, you can sell them for me, Paul. Thanks. No, but they mustn't forget you need to hire. I come across too many people processing with ovens of 260 and 280. Okay, it's going to take you forever to get to the cure for XLDPs and polypropes, and you're going to destroy the material anyway. If you spin too slowly, you just destroy the material before it even comes out the mold. But yes, the temp logger would help. Thanks, Paul.
So can we proceed with the next question if we're done?
Yeah. One question is from Mr. Deepak Asrani, PD Polygrander. For the different grades of materials, does the particle size distribution in powder is having any effect, or does a different particle size distribution can affect on the process or on cycle time? If we change grades, is it? Yeah.
Yes.
Martin, can you answer that, please?
Yes. Yes, obviously the particle size distribution and the size of the particles obviously are very, very, very important. I mean, like Gary was saying before about, you know, it's absolutely crucial when you're rotomolding to make good products. You need good, perfect processing. It's the same, you need good design, you need good tooling, you need good raw material, and you need good powder. Powder is really, really important. So if you have a powder that's got too many fines in it, you know, too much dust in it, that can cause all sorts of problems during the molding. if the material is too coarse or it's too taily, you know, where it's not being cut cleanly, it tends to tangle together and clump. It won't then flow into the corners very well, into tight areas, into threads, all those kind of things. There's lots of different things that can go wrong in the rotomolding process if you have poor quality powder. And yes, I mean it's an extremely important area in rotomolding. It's often forgotten about. We see, you know, we have 5 plants that produce powders, so we kind of make powder professionally for the market. We see a lot of molders, particularly in Asia, who've got in-house grinding, which I'm sure a lot of you guys have. Maybe because historically you've not had a good supply of powder in the market. But what we tend to find is a lot of people just kind of have the grinder running in the corner of the factory and they don't really look after it, don't do the maintenance on the blade sharpening, you know, not consistently monitoring the quality. And what happens over time is that quality tends to drift and become poorer. The powder becomes, as I say, is a forgotten element, and it is so crucial to making good, consistent, high quality products. So that's the way it is. Incidentally, we find that a lot of the reason why people use buy powder or make it themselves is because you can't really get supply. If you're in the parts of the world like, for example, in Europe, where there's been historically good supply of powder, like in the UK, out of what 85 molders in the UK, there's probably only 2 that actually do any in-house grinding. They all buy powder from people like ourselves, and they don't do it themselves. People, you know, because there's been a good supply. I think in India there hasn't been that same supply, and therefore a lot of people do things in-house. But you need to, the quality of the powder is really, really good.
Mr. Martin, actually, I wanted to ask this thing.
Buying powdered material.
Say that again.
Indian industry is also now trying to get into buying powdered material instead of grinding themselves. So
Yes.
I guess we are upgrading ourselves slowly.
Yeah, and I think that's a growing trend globally. People are going less and less into in-house. I think it's partly because supply is improving. You know, there's more and more people like ourselves and Paul, you know, putting in more capacity and got more into the market. And I think that's helping the market. It helps improve the quality.
That's right.
Actually, Mr. Martin,
yeah, sure.
Mr. Singh, sorry to interrupt you. I'd like to have a repeat question about this matter. Actually, my question was, you have a different definition of good powder for different grades, or it remains same for all the grades?
Sorry, you're saying different powder for tank grades as opposed to other grades, yeah?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Okay, well, we actually use different powders for different applications. Yes, in fact, different markets seem to want a different type of powder. So particularly we do a lot of business in Australia. You know, we're have a big compounding grinding plant in Australia, and that market tends to be making quite large tanks. You know, some of them are up to 50,000 liters. So those particularly larger tanks, we tend to supply a coarser powder. You know, so the industry standard traditionally has been 500 micron powder, like in Europe. Still, it's sort of that's the sieve size, 500 microns, or in America they call it 35 mesh. But as I say, for these larger products, larger tanks, we typically make you know, coarser powders, maybe 800 microns sieves, or in between that and 500, depending on the customer and depending on the application. But yeah, certainly if you've got larger tanks, you can get away with a larger, a coarser powder. But the particle size distribution as well is still important, even with a coarser powder. You don't want too many fines, and you don't want too much coarse.
Yeah.
Can I add? Lal, can I just add to that, because there's there's one very big thing here. It's come up a few times, multi-layers. And when you go to these thin wall multi-layers, your powder quality is different. Okay, you need a different, and you can't just throw it through any old grinder. The thinner your layer is, the more important your grind is. Okay, like Martin said, in Australia, I don't agree with it, but with these big tanks with thick walls, they go higher particle size. But I believe in as fine as you can get. But especially in India with your multi-layers and your thin layers, you have to have a superb grind, especially for the outside layer. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that answers the question. There's another question. I think I'll ask Paul to answer that. It's about the pellets, manufacture of low-cost pellets. I guess he means handling heavy weights. I know Rajiv is here. He can ask a question, or Paul could probably answer the question for him.
Rajiv is not here.
Define low cost.
Well, I don't know. Your case is as good as mine. The gentleman is not here, but he means low-cost pellets by means the raw material cost will be lower.
Yeah. This is for export application, one-time use and throw.
I would recommend you to buy injection molded pallets.
Oh.
Yeah.
If you're looking for a cheap rotomolded pallet that can withstand the loads that an injection molded polyprop or even a PE pallet can withstand, they won't withstand the load. If you're looking at a rotomolded pallet which is customized and specialized to a particular application, then by all means, rotomolding will do some wonderful things for you. But as a cheap commodity, big challenge. I mean, I worked in the project in Dubai that was planning to make 20 million pallets a year, and it was a sand and polyethylene combination. And we made some progress in terms of loading, and the machines were fully automatic. We had Leonardo machines out of Persico in Italy, and even they haven't been able to succeed. The machine is now in, I think it's in, it's just across the border in Saudi Arabia from Bahrain. So, but for one-way shipping pallets, which are very cheap, rotomolding is going to be a challenge.
So I guess we need to go into more sophisticated pallets and so on.
Certainly a lot more value added, Lau.
Yes, I note that. Yeah. Manoj, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I have one question from underground company. One company based in South India, making underground products. He is asking about how you define use of hexene or butene in 5,000 liter or 10,000 liter underground tanks.
5,000 and 10,000.
Yeah. How you define what grade we have to use, hexene or butene?
Yeah. Martin, would you like to please answer that?
Yeah, I mean, well, to be honest with you, we would always encourage people who are making 5,000 liter or above to be using hexene. Hexene materials have higher stress crack resistance. Obviously, with hexene as well, as I mentioned before, you can get away with using a higher density. And the larger the tank, the more important things like creep resistance, long-term creep is. And that is much better if that's a higher density. So a 939 has got much better creep performance than, say, a 935. So we would certainly recommend for a 10,000 liter, or obviously anything above that as well, up to, as I say, we have customers making 50,000 liter. They should all be using hexene. We've got a grade 6329U, which is a 939 3.2 melt hexene, which we supply a lot of it into India, and we'd be very happy to talk to you. I mean, that's really the sort of grade to use for anything. I mean, we have people using that grade also for 5,000 liters, but depending on the design and obviously processing and all the other things, as Gary said earlier, for a 5,000 liter, you can use butene if you've got everything else correct. And we do a lot of business with a 4 melt 938, 939 for 5,000 liter tanks, which is a butene grade. So yeah, we would generally recommend anything over 5,000 should be hexene. The other thing I would add as well is obviously the design is really important. We've seen this in places like Australia, where you can actually have a relatively small tank, which they have these designs called slimline tanks. So you can sort of take the tank between houses, so they're quite narrow. And because they're these columns, they actually have a tremendous amount of stress built into the that comes from the column. And so even tanks that are less than 5,000 litres, in that kind of design, again, it's been found that hexene is much better because of the better stress crack performance. So it isn't as simple as 5,000 is this and 10,000. It's actually, it can be, it's really down to different factors. But certainly hexene is much safer.
Okay, that's good. Thank you, Martin.
Yeah, one more question from industry. This is for Vikram ji. Kasper is asking about is there any ready-made package with UV8 or UV16 with the antioxidant level?
UV16 with
ready-made package of UV8 with AO and UV16 with AO. Do you have any ready-made package? One package.
You mean
sorry, you're saying available package material with higher UV, yeah?
You're looking for a master batch or a powder?
Master batch form. Master batch form.
Master batch, yes.
UV and antioxidant.
Yes, we have both. You can buy a powder straight off, or you can supply you the master batch also for this.
Can I just tell you that 6329U that I mentioned is UV15 with all the antioxidants and everything in it as the base natural granule.
That's in a granule form.
Yeah, we can supply it as granule or powder, however you want it.
Okay.
Granule form UV15, and it's got packed with antioxidants, so a very wide processing window. And we have
master batch to make the material himself.
Vikram, you operate as a powder or granule?
It's a straightforward product. We can supply it as a master batch, or we can supply it as a powder also.
Powder, okay.
Depending on if the customer has his own mill, we can supply it as a master batch.
Manoj, do you have any questions?
From industry, because of since last 1 year we are facing a labor problem and costly labor. So people are asking about advancement in rotomolding. How we go ahead for automation or to cut down manpower?
Can I Dano to answer that, please?
Yeah.
Dano?
I think the first thing would be to stop making your own powder, buy it from somewhere else, because you waste a lot of time and energy in extruding and then powdering the product. Dano, over to you. Sorry.
No, that's fine. You answered 50% of the question. See, basically, I think when you are a new rotomolder and you are processing maybe 200 tons or under that, 150 tons a month, I think it's best to buy your powder from outside and get rid of one aspect of the entire steps of the process where you don't have to worry about anything. Buy a good quality powder, half the battle is won. You try and do compounding yourself, you try and do pulverizing yourself. If you look at the cost of what you're buying ready-made powders at and what you are doing in-house, including the labor, the overheads, the factory, the power connection, I think buying powder is the right way to go. In the rotomolding process, how to be more efficient is, first thing is design. I'm not going to touch at this point, but look at the steps of the process. Can we load unload in multiple points? Do we need so many people to load unload? Can we give them additional platforms? Can we give them good tools? Can we give them nice compact wrenches? How can we help the worker on the shop floor? If we make him more efficient, if we help the worker on the shop floor, your output will go up. But pulverizing and extrusion, I think, is a ball game that now we should hand it over to the experts, since now there are so many powder manufacturers in India and high quality powders available from abroad. The fact that people like Matrix, Polymer Link, Vikram, out of all of us, there are 3 powder suppliers here, highly qualified and technically highly experienced in all the fields. It shows that powder should be bought and not produced. Thank you.
Thank you, Daru. But I think Martin also just pointed out of the UK, 85 rotomolders in UK, only 2 make their own powder, pulverize their own powder. So this is a good example. That is the way to go. I'm sure that will be the future, in India.
Traditionally, what has happened is extruders were very, very cheap. People used to make in-house cheap extruders. They would think just making an extruder with a length by diameter ratio of 20:1 is enough. Buy an old gearbox from a truck or something, put a screw into it, and you can extrude, and you've got good material. The same way of pulverizing. Nobody does sieve analyzing on it. They're talking of out of the 1,500, maybe 1,000 or 1,200 rotomolders that are there, which do things in-house. They also like to put a little bit of reused material in, and they say, where does our scrap go? But today the world is changing. They are getting more quality conscious. They know, and there are those days, maybe 10 years, 15 years ago, there was no powder supplier actually in India. Right now, there might be 10 or 15 powder suppliers who are locally manufactured. So the world is changing. I think that's the way to go. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Vipul Rathod with the question. Can I ask him to pose his question, please?
Yeah, I have a question for Mr. Martin. Sir, I'm using your one of the grades, that is Revolve 4409U. In that, you are mentioning that you are giving UV15. So if I use that material, so how much time I can tell my customer that this UV15 will last, means to say the product will not get into fading?
Okay. Sorry, just say the last bit again. Sorry, 4409U, as you said, is a UV15 as well.
Yeah. So if I'm using that material of yours, so you
Yes.
are telling that it's having UV15 in that. So what life shell should I tell to my customer, that what would be the life shell for this? In UV15, how many years I can tell that the product will not fade or something?
I mean, that's an impossible question to answer because there are so many variables. What I can say to you though is that the kind of international sort of, it wasn't really a standard, but the kind of norm in the past over the last 30 years has been UV8 as a sort of global level of what people have seen is as good UV stabilization. Obviously, with UV15, you've got almost double that level of almost that level of UV. So it's impossible to actually give a date, or because there's so many variables. It depends whether you're pigmenting it, and if you are, which pigments you're using. It depends on, as Gary said earlier, about processing. I mean, you can destroy materials by over processing them or burning them, damaging the antioxidant package. It's important, and there's obviously all the variables in terms of where is the product going to go, what's the ambient temperature, is it going in the sea, is there going to be salt on it, is there going to be all these different situations. So it's actually impossible to guarantee any kind of number of years,
because I need to export that material to EU country.
Yeah, so UV15 is a high level for anywhere in the world. So UV15 is higher than most materials that are produced in Europe for rotomolding. So most grades now are around UV10. Some are UV8, and some are UV15 in Europe. But UV15 really is the top. The only one that's sort of higher that you see anywhere is in Australia. There is some requirement or some people prefer to use a UV20, and we in fact supply UV20 into Australia and New Zealand as well. And we could supply that to you in India with a different grade We have a grade that's a UV 20, but you know that really is kind of, I think, is going over the top. I don't think you need to worry about your UV level if you're up around UV 15.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Martin, one for you. You mentioned seawater and salt effects on UV. So let's say if you are a boy, what is the right UV level that you would recommend for the material?
Again, rather than the higher level, the better. I'm concerned about the performance in an environment where there's high levels of UV. I mean, if you have a boy, you've obviously got issues like the sun is reflecting on the water, which can also enhance and increase the UV radiation. So there's all sorts of, that's what I'm saying, there's all sorts of different environmental effects that affect the UV. And obviously the pigments is really, really important as well in the whole subject area of UV, because some pigments can enhance the UV level, UV protection, and others can actually reduce it. I'm sure Vikram can support what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
Traditionally, it would be yellow or orange. So what is the material that you would recommend for an application in the ocean for a float?
Well, it depends on the design of the float. We sell a lot of material for for floats and flotation collars. So these things that go around pipelines that go subsea, under the sea for like the oil industry. And we actually tend to use a hexene grade, but it's actually a lower density, because actually lower density you get more toughness and more stress crack resistance. So we actually, if you've got something where it's going to be massively abused, we would use quite a lowish density, which isn't as stiff, but it's got more ultimate impact strength and toughness. But again, a hexene with a hexene comonomer.
Yeah, I think that's the one you're talking about is being molded on our machinery.
Say that again, Danu.
The one that you're talking about, subsea, is being molded on our machines.
Yes, indeed. You know what I'm talking about, and who I'm talking about. Yeah, and that's compound. The other thing is that's compounded material, not dry blend. Again, compounded materials got better physical properties, and you could also, the other key thing with that kind of application is the light fastness of the color. You don't want a yellow boy, and you don't want a yellow boy to suddenly fade. So actually, your choice of pigments is really, really crucial. But again, your processing is absolutely crucial. You can damage your pigments, and you can damage the life of the color as well as the UV by overcooking and damaging the material.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. So I think we're done with the questions so far, but I invite everybody to write your questions on email.
Mr. Venkat is here. Okay. Mr. Venkat is here. Venkatji.
There's Venkat.
Yeah, hi. Hi, everyone. Good evening. So I have two questions. One is, the first one is for Dhanubai. Dhanubai, when do we see the temperature monitoring systems as a standard feature of rotomolding machines? At least the advanced one which are used for automotive parts, etc. Your valid opinion and comments on that.
Whenever you want.
Okay.
You only have to order it with the machine, and you have to pick the temp logger system that you want. And we can, but we prefer that you buy it directly from, so that you have your own decision on that. We can integrate any temp logging system into the machine, whether it is temp logger, whether it is 493K, whether it's somebody else's system. Our equipment is totally compatible with any of the present pH measuring systems.
Well, the question is in the specific context that, most of the molders, even though they may have a temperature monitoring system, are hardly using it, let alone for production, even for effective R&D trials, etc. So my thought was in general that if there are machines which are as a standard integrated with the monitoring system, it will prompt and tempt the molders to use it more and more practically and in their daily production processes as well. So what do you think on that?
See, if you give it as a standard, there is always, the customer will or the user will always ask for a bypass system on that. Not a button where he says, I don't want to use the P8 on this because I've got 10 molds on the spider and I've already established the systems. There is no way of me making him use it even by supplying it as a standard.
Okay.
There has to be a point where if you tell me there is no bypass, you cannot run the machine without measuring the pH in the product. That has to come from the customer. We can easily do it. But the machine should run at night as well when the operator is half asleep.
So it's more like a cultural, educational change rather than a technology or system change.
Training, the level of the operators, everything.
Okay. Thank you, Dhanubai. My second question is to my friend Gary. If you were granted the wish to name 3 new materials which you would like to have for the industry, which are those, please?
Materials.
You are granted the wish to define the 3 new materials which would come in the next so many years, whatever.
Okay. I unfortunately had some beautiful materials that disappeared from the market. Okay, EBA being one of them. Okay, which is making a small comeback. I don't know if Martin or Paul or anybody's got it, but I don't think so. So EBA was an incredible material. Another request that we're getting more and more is totally transparent materials. So whether it be in rigid PVCs or acrylics or polypropylenes or polycarbs or whatever it might be, totally clear materials. Martin, I think you got some of those. Paul, I think you more in commodities, but totally clear, processed. The biggest problem is EBA is not an expensive material if it's back on the market, but people didn't use it. The clear materials, whenever you get a clear material, it's a problem material to mold. And everybody comes running to me, right now, I've got a big job and I need to find a totally clear material for a client where we're going to do the whole job for him. So that's one we used to have and has disappeared. And then polypropylene, I know these aren't all new materials because a thing like CBT just came onto the market, was a wonderful material and disappeared. So Cyclics, I'm sure the guys who know special materials, Cyclics was amazing material and I molded it and I've got some beautiful samples. So if we could get CBT type materials back on the market. And the fourth would be polypropylene. I know polypropylene is a bitch to mold, but to grind. So yeah, it's probably my fourth on the list. So the top 3 is EBA, clear, totally transparent materials. I know there are on the market, but all of them are difficult to process. And then, as I said, CBT. CBT has some incredible features, but it's also a complicated material to mold. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question. None of them are simple, easy materials, and none of them are freely available.
Gary,
so I can give you a list.
Gary, what were the applications for EBA?
Yes. Sorry, Martin.
What were the applications you saw?
Application for clear is normally
for EBA.
Explosives. Sorry, yeah, okay. EBA is EBA totally replaces EVA. EVA is not the easiest material to grind and mold without bubble free. Okay, what we did ourselves. I can't explain what the market I'm looking for now because it's I've signed the NDA. But what we used it for was road cones, explosive bags, all sorts of things, Martin. If you give me EVA, because of its moldability and you don't get pinoles and bubbles forming like EVA. EVA, we went as high as 14 to 18 VA content, but then it becomes almost impossible to grind and worse than polypropylene. So EVA was a magic material, okay? So there's a whole range there. And then feel, what we did with EVA, we actually lined drums and tanks, okay, to help for impact. We did it for feel and touch for where, like a pallet, we mentioned pallets earlier for sliding and slipping and sliding on pallets. We did for food bags that were stored on pallets. We put an outer layer of EVA, make it cling. There's plenty of applications for EVA. The list is endless. The clear materials and the rigid ones is more for explosives containers, for lighting, for there's no big deal and hidden secrets there, but it's I mean, we all would love to have a clear tank that you can see what's happening inside. Yeah, not in all applications, but there's lots of applications that would want it. And then the final one, CBT, I mean, I think I've shown the world a few times. In fact, I did a presentation in Hamburg 2 years ago, how we molded stone. We can get finishes. We can mold granite stone, you know, that you have a granite base, a granite slab, 90, as high as 96% stone. So it opened. I was hoping to break into the market, into the hotel industry, you know, for molding slabs and vanity slabs and things like that. And there's plenty other applications. Just a table, granite table, kitchen surfaces, sinks, wash-hand basins. There's a massive market for it. But it came, myself and I think the Goch brothers in Australia molded a bit of it. And I don't know, there was one other, but there wasn't demand, so it disappeared. But fantastic material. The difference is with me, I don't care about price. If you come to me with a very special material and it's got a very special price, I'll find the market. Okay, because I'm not trying to make water tanks out of these materials. But yeah, and I can give you a list of about 3-4 others, but they're the top 3, I'd say. Does that answer your question, Venkat?
Absolutely, Gary. Absolutely. I mean, great. Thanks. Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Martin. I believe there are no more questions. So I'm going to conclude here. And of course, with the thought, leaving you with everybody that they can write email to us or the presenters their questions, and I'm sure they'll be glad to answer. And of course, I hope to see you all here. But now I'm very pleased to conclude this very informative session. Roma, thanks you all for very much. Thank you all for your active participation in today's Meet the Industry Leaders Summit. Roma is delighted to have this strong presence from all of you, from the rotor molders, resin manufacturers, machine mold suppliers, compound and powder suppliers, designers, secondary suppliers, and so on. Roma is indeed very privileged to have you all here. So today's discussions have been very interesting, with Martin pointing out about Hexene 6 applications, you know, into larger tanks and diesel tanks and so on, and also the importance of the UV grade and applications in infrastructure and transport. Paul has indicated that in 2 weeks, hopefully he'll be online in Daman, and we'll have some material that is coming up here. And of course, his important highlighting is the supply chain in India changing over from China is a good potential, and vaccine and related vaccine transport related product would be a very good future. And this is growing. I'm sure it will go in the very near future. And I'm very glad that Vikram has got plants all over India, and with all kinds of UV grades and others already offering. So this would be a great boost for the Indian rotor molding industry. And Dano, of course, has been heading the technology, you know, with the new products and remote installations with non-contact and very good products as a machine and customers are producing. And I thank Gary, the master creator of the temp logger, with high-tech rotomolding, intelligent molds, and so on. Our discussions have been very good and excellent on special grades and PP and a lot of new products. We all have learned a lot, and this is indeed very interesting. In the context of Indian rotomolding market, I would say it is a rising east. There's a great, humongous opportunities offered by India, with the per capita consumption going from 15 kg and much higher, with the world average of 27 kilos. We have a long way to go. Indian industry is fast catching up. Roto sector is also witnessing a 12% year-to-year growth, with a strong flag bearer of non-tank applications, with a growth pace of over 15%. Indian rotomolding market of late has been witnessing some changes with the emergence of large PVC pipe producers backward integrating into water tanks and growing. There are names like large industry like Supreme Industries, Prince Pipes, Sudhakar Pipes, Ashirwad Pipes, Astral Pipe, Vectors, and many more. India has also been witnessing applications for development in custom molding. Leading sector is the material handling, automotive, retail, furnitures and recreations. A very important sector now is the underground tank application, which is going up very fast due to its demand and people being more interested in it. So I'm sure this offers a great opportunity to all of us. Thank you all very much for attending and for the good question answer that we had, and a very good interesting session we had. I really am very grateful, and thank you very much. Now I hand over the stage to Sushil Sonagra.
Lal, can I just say thank you very much for inviting me, and I'm sure all the other speakers, I echo their sentiment. It's been a great panel that you put together, and I think it's been run very professionally and very well. Congratulations. Keep it up, Roma. Thanks.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you, everyone. Manoj, is Sushil there?
Mr. Sethi is delivering a vote of thanks.
Okay. Mr. Sethi.
Mr. Sethi. Yes, Sethi ji, over to you.
Thank you, LK Singh Saab. I thank you very much, Mr. LK Singh Saab, who attended today's session very well. And I thank Mr. Manoj Patria, who has also sessioned the open house very well. And I again thanks to all our industry experts, Mr. Paul, Mr. Martin, Coles, and Mr. Gary, Mr. Vikram, and Mr. Dhanu Patel, who has come on our request and given the presentation on this thing. I feel honored and privileged having an opportunity to offer a vote of thanks on this memorable occasion. First of all, I would like to thank all the seniors and superiors showing trust in Roma. I'm extremely elevated to announce the successful closure of today's 22nd webinar. We got overwhelming response and love of across the Roto fraternity, and sincerely thank to all Roma members for attending the series of webinar and getting knowledge across and learning. I thanks all the people, and our next webinar will be on 23rd of February. That is our EGM meeting. So only the members are requested to attend this meeting. There's a special general meeting is there. So request all the members to come on time. Our next webinar will be held on 27th, and that is a very interesting webinar for all the people, not only the rotomolding sector. People can join from complete plastic industry. It is a motivation seminar. Basically, the Mr. Rahul Jain, a well-known person in the motivation speaker, is going to give the motivation speech to how to develop your business activity. So I request all the members from the globe as well as from the India to attend his webinar. Definitely it will be interesting for that one. We at Maharashtra Mahapolis are very eager to work with all the leaders who chair today for our products and services. Very soon we will meet again. Thanks for attending, all the industry experts and members. Thank you very much. Thanks, Stella. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Jai Hind.
Thank you. Jai Hind.
Jai Hind.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much.
Cheers. Have a great weekend. Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you.
You can open all of your.
Sorry?
You can open your barrel.
Okay. Yeah.
Cheers. Cheers, guys.
Cheers. Cheers.
Cheers. Bye. 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 Bye.
Thank you, Vipul bhai, also for organizing today's session.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Siri. Thank you, Manoj.
Thank you.
Very well organized. Very good report.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Martin.
Thank you, Martin.
Thank you. Thank you, Martin. Bye.
Namaste, everybody.
Namaste, LK sir. Thank you, LK sir. Well done.
Good meeting.
दलबीर जी, thank you. दलबीर जी
हैं?
हाँ, बैठे हैं.
अच्छा.
Thank you.
Very nice.
ओ भाई जी, thank you.
Thank you, Patran.
प्रशांत जी, thank you. प्रशांत जी भी हैं.
प्रशांत जी है? कहाँ दिखे
हाँ,
नहीं?
बैठे हैं ना. सब बैठे हैं सर.
नमस्कार.
वीडियो ऑन कीजिए आपका थोड़ा.
वीडियो दिखाइए सर.
वेलकम.
हाँ जी.
वेरी
सर,
वेलकम.
आपका वीडियो दिख रहा है दलबीर जी.
वेलकम.
वीडियो.
बैठे लगता है आप तो.
मैं तो घर पे हूँ.
अच्छा, आप घर पे हैं.
घर पे?
प्रशांत जी ऑफिस में हैं.
सैटरडे मना रहे हैं मतलब दलबीर जी.
हाँ जी, हाँ जी.
Very good.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Goodbye. Thank you. It was very nice discussion. Very nice.
Good.
सिंह साहब ने काफी अच्छा कंडक्ट किया है. Thank you.
Thank you to all.